All right, get ready because today we're diving headfirst into the crazy world of NBA trades.
Oh yeah, get those trade machines fired up.
We're talking about the deals that make or break dynasties.
The ones that leave you scratching your head like, what were they thinking?
You guys send in some wild stories, and our mission is to unpack the juiciest, most impactful trades in NBA history. So buckle up because we're about to break down the good, the bad, and the downright ugly.
And trust me, when it comes to NBA trades, there's plenty of all three.
Let's start with a move that still haunts OKC fans to this day. The James Harden trade.
Oh yeah, that one's a classic.
Picture this, it's 2012. Oklahoma City has this young, explosive trio, Durant, Westbrook, and Harden. They just made it to the finals. Harden won Sixth Man of the Year. The future is looking bright.
They were on the cusp of something special, that's for sure.
But then contract negotiations hit a snag. OKC offers Harden a deal, but it's $4.5 million short of what he wanted.
Yeah, that's the number that's etched in every OKC fan's memory.
$4.5 million. It seems crazy that such a relatively small amount could have such massive consequences.
Well, in the world of NBA finances, every dollar counts.
So rather than pay up, OKC decides to trade Harden to the Houston Rockets.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Harden goes on to become an MVP, a scoring machine, a perennial all-star. Meanwhile, OKC never reaches those championship heights again. Durant leaves, Westbrook leaves.
It's like a what-if scenario that just keeps playing out in OKC fans' minds.
It really makes you think about the long-term impact of that trade. Did letting Harden go affect their ability to keep other stars?
Absolutely. It sent a message, you know?
Like, hey, we're not willing to pay top dollar for top talent.
It definitely made them less attractive to free agents in the years that followed.
And who knows, maybe if they just paid Harden, they could have built a dynasty.
It's one of those trades that'll be debated for years to come.
Speaking of debates, let's shift gears to a GM known for his wheeling and dealing, Danny Ainge of the Boston Celtics.
Ah, Danny Ainge, the master of the trade game.
This guy is a legend. He's made some moves that have left fans both cheering and scratching their heads.
He's not afraid to take risks, that's for sure.
And one of his biggest gambles came in 2013 when he traded away two aging but legendary players, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, to the Brooklyn Nets.
Two pillars of the Celtics organization.
And let me tell you, some Celtics fans were heartbroken.
Yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow for some. But Ainge, he had a plan.
In return for these two future Hall of Famers, he gets a king's ransom of draft picks.
4 first-round picks. It was a haul.
This move signaled a rebuild for the Celtics, while the Nets, with their new veteran stars, were hoping for immediate contention.
It was a classic case of two teams of different timelines and different goals.
But here's the thing, the Nets' big gamble didn't really pay off. They made a quick playoff exit, Pierce left, Garnett followed soon after, and they were left without their stars and a depleted draft cupboard.
It's a cautionary tale about trying to build a championship team overnight.
Meanwhile, Ainge, with all those draft picks, was able to build a new Celtics core, and eventually they made it back to the playoffs, contending for championships.
He's a master at playing the long game.
But the question is, was it genius or was it just luck? Those draft picks could have easily busted.
That's the thing with trades. There's always an element of risk. You can do all the research, all the scouting, but you never really know how things are going to shake out.
It's a constant reminder that even the savviest GMs can't predict the future.
It's part of what makes the NBA so exciting.
Okay, let's rewind the clock even further back to the 1998 NBA draft. This one involves a certain German player who became a legend, but not for the team that drafted him.
Ah, you're talking about Dirk Nowitzki.
The one and only. So the Milwaukee Bucks draft Dirk Nowitzki and then immediately trade him to the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history.
It's like they just handed a franchise player to another team on a silver platter.
And to think the Bucks were looking for a more physical presence in the paint, so they draft Robert Tractor Trailer and include him in the deal for Nowitzki.
And Burke was seen as this lanky European with a questionable future. Talk about misjudging potential.
It's easy to look back now and say they made a mistake, but at the time, it was a different story.
Nowitzki becomes a Mavericks icon, an NBA champion, one of the greatest power forwards of all time. Traylor, unfortunately, had a much less successful career.
It's a reminder that scouting is not an exact science.
And sometimes you have to look beyond the obvious, beyond the physical attributes.
You have to see the potential, the work ethic, the drive that can make a player great.
Okay, let's talk about a trade that involved one of the most legendary players of all time, Kobe Bryant.
Oh man, the Kobe trade? That's a story for the ages.
This goes back to 1996 when Jerry West, the Lakers GM, had a hunch about a young, unproven high school prospect.
Jerry West, the logo himself, he had a knack for spotting talent.
And he saw something special in Kobe. The story goes that Kobe just dominated a workout with Michael Cooper, a former Lakers star. He's only 17 at the time. But he already had that killer instinct.
West knew he had to have him.
The problem was the Lakers didn't have a high draft pick. So West gets creative and orchestrates a trade with the Charlotte Hornets, sending Vlad Divac, a fan-favorite center, in exchange for the draft rights to Kobe Bryant.
It was a bold move, trading away a proven player for a high school kid.
But this was willing to gamble, and boy, did that gamble pay off. Kobe becomes a global icon, a 5-time NBA champion, one of the most prolific scorers in league history.
He and Shaq's formed one of the most dominant duos we've ever seen.
It's amazing to think that this legendary Laker almost didn't happen because of a draft day trade.
Yeah, the Hornets must be kicking themselves for that one.
It's another reminder that sometimes you have to take risks. You have to trust your gut.
And sometimes those risks lead to the creation of legends.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. We've got so much more to uncover.
You know, we talk about these what-ifs, but sometimes it goes the other way. You have a bona fide superstar, and trading them away still turns into a massive regret.
Like when the Milwaukee Bucks traded Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1975. He was already a legend. 3-time MVP, already had a championship with him. What went wrong?
He wanted more, it felt like the team just wasn't strong enough to compete for titles consistently, and he wanted to be in a bigger market, a place that resonated with him more culturally.
So he gave him an ultimatum, trade me or I walk.
Basically, yeah, he wanted either LA or New York, and the Bucks, well, they didn't want to lose their franchise player, so they made a deal.
Sent him to the Lakers, didn't they? Did they at least get a good return?
A package of players, sure, but nothing close to Kareem's caliber.
Trading a Ferrari for a used minivan, that's gotta hurt for Bucks fans.
And they haven't been back to the finals since that trade. Kareem went on to win 5 more championships with the Lakers. Crazy how one move can completely change the trajectory of 2 franchises.
It shows how players started realizing their own power, their value. They weren't just pieces to be moved around.
Absolutely. It was the beginning of the player empowerment era, something that's still evolving today.
And speaking of trades that had huge historical impact, let's talk about the Bill Russell trade back in 1956.
This one is loaded with layers, historical significance, racial dynamics, the whole package.
Set the scene for us.
Okay, so it's 1956, St. Louis Hawks. They draft Bill Russell 2nd overall. We got to remember this was a very different time. Racial tensions were high, and the Hawks had a history of all-white teams.
They draft one of the greatest players of all time, a black player, and then they trade him away.
Red Auerbach, the legendary coach and GM of the Boston Celtics, saw his chance, and he took it, offered the Hawks Cliff Hagan and Ed McCauley, 2 white players, in exchange for Russell.
I mean, it's just hard to fathom trading away a talent like Bill Russell.
It's a complicated situation, hard to say definitively what the Hawks' motivations were, but the trade's impact on both franchises and the league was huge.
I bet it worked out okay for the Celtics.
Let's just say Russell led them to 11 NBA championships in 13 seasons. He became a symbol of excellence, of dominance, of social progress.
And the Hawks
never quite reached those same heights. It's a powerful reminder of how societal issues and sports intersect, We need to remember these moments, learn from them, and grow.
Absolutely. Sports are never just about sports. Now, talking about players who knew their worth, Wilt Chamberlain was demanding trades way before LeBron James made it popular.
Wilt was a force of nature. In 1968, he decided he'd had enough with the Philadelphia 76ers. Wanted to play in Los Angeles.
What was the issue in Philly?
Clashes with ownership, unhappy with the team's direction. He felt that they weren't building a contender, and the allure of LA was strong.
So he just forced his way out.
Pretty much. Said he wouldn't play another minute for them if they didn't trade him. Even threatened to jump to the ABA, the rival league back then.
He held all the cards. What did the Sixers get in return?
Darryl Imhoff, Jerry Chambers, Archie Clark.
Doesn't exactly scream fair trade.
In hindsight, no. Chamberlain went on to win a championship with the Lakers while the Sixers struggled. It really set a precedent for player empowerment, showing stars could demand trades and control their own future.
And that power dynamic has only become more pronounced over the years. Okay, let's talk about a trade that gave us one of the most iconic duos ever, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Ah, the ultimate sidekick. Drafted by Seattle in '87, but traded to the Bulls almost immediately. Crazy to think a 6-time champ was once considered expendable.
Seriously, what did the Sonics get for him?
Olden Polynice. A decent center, but...
Olden Polynice for Scottie Pippen. You can't make this stuff up.
Pippen was a relative unknown from a small college back then. The Sonics needed a center, and Polynice seemed like a safe bet. But they totally missed on Pippen's potential.
Pippen's impact on the Bulls was huge, versatile, could do it all: score, defend, rebound, pass. The perfect complement to Jordan.
Their partnership was something special. Pippen's selflessness, his defense, his ability to step up in big moments, it was crucial to the Bulls' dynasty. He let Jordan focus on being Jordan.
The chemistry they had was undeniable. It's just wild to think that this legendary duo almost never happened because of a draft day trade.
Really shows how unpredictable the draft can be. You can do all the homework you want, but sometimes it's just gut feeling and a little bit of luck.
Speaking of trades that made history, we've got to talk about some of the other big ones.
Oh, there are so many.
Hit me with some more highlights.
All right, how about Charles Barkley to the Suns in '92? He was a force of nature, transformed the Suns into instant contenders, won the MVP the next year, and led them to the finals.
Now that's a trade that shook things up. Barkley brought a whole new level of intensity to Phoenix.
And then there's the Moses Malone trade to the Braves in '76. Dominant center, rebounding machine, future three-time MVP. The Blazers, who drafted him, traded him away for a first-round pick and some cash.
That's got to be one of the biggest draft blunders ever.
Right up there, for sure. It shows that even with good intentions, trades can backfire. Sometimes teams just miss the talent right in front of them.
Or they make decisions that come back to haunt them, like the Blazers passing on Michael Jordan in '84.
Oh yeah, that one's legendary. They already had Hakeem Olajuwon and thought they needed a shooting guard, so they went with Sam Bowie instead.
And Jordan went on to become, well, Jordan, the GOAT. Imagine if he'd ended up in Portland.
It would have changed everything. They thought they were making the safe choice, but it turned out to be a huge mistake.
Shows you that even the best can get it wrong. It's like trying to predict the future, you just never know.
And that's what keeps things interesting, right? The unpredictability is what makes the NBA so captivating.
Okay, I got to hear more of these head-scratching trades. What else you got?
All right, this one might be a bit before your time, but it's a classic. It involves a Hall of Famer and a team that seemed like they were on the verge of greatness.
Lay it on me.
We're going back to 1965. The Cincinnati Royals trade away Oscar Robertson, one of the most versatile players ever, to the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Big O traded away. He was already a 9-time All-Star and an MVP. Why would they let him go?
It's still a bit of a mystery. Some say it was personality clashes with the coach. Others say the owner just didn't want to pay him what he was worth.
It's like they had no idea what kind of player they had.
Robertson was in his prime. He could have led them to a championship. Instead, he went to the Bucks and won a title with them just 4 years later.
Talk about a missed opportunity. It really shows you got to recognize and value true talent. Can't let ego or money get in the way of building a winning team.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes teams get so caught up in the short term that they lose sight of the big picture.
All right, I'm hooked. Keep those stories coming.
Let's jump ahead a few decades to the 80s. There's a trade that shook things up and helped launch a dynasty.
I'm all ears.
It's 1987, and the Philadelphia 76ers trade away their star point guard Moses Malone to the Washington Bullets.
Wait, another Moses Malone trade.
This one's different, I promise, but it does have some similarities to the Oscar Robertson situation. A dominant player traded away in his prime for what seemed like a questionable return.
But why? What was the thinking there?
The Sixers were in a tough spot. They had a young Charles Barkley ready to step up, plus money much tight, and Malone's contract was huge.
So they decided to bet on the young star and move on from the veteran, even though he was still playing great. Risky move.
It was, but sometimes you got to take a leap of faith, and in this case, it worked out for the Sixers. They built around Barkley and become a force in the East.
And the Bullets. How'd they do with Malone?
Malone played well, but they never really took that next step, made the playoffs, but no real championship contention.
So a win for the Sixers, even though it meant saying goodbye to a legend. They knew it was time for a change, time to build something new.
And that's the key, recognizing when it's time to adapt and not being afraid to make the tough calls, even if it means letting go of a fan favorite.
It's amazing how these trades can have such ripple effects, changing the course of teams and even the entire league.
You know, we could spend hours talking about all the different trades and their impact, but for now, let's take a step back and think about what we've learned.
Like, give me the big picture. What are the main takeaways here?
I think the biggest one is that trades are inherently risky. Teams are trying to predict the future, which is impossible. Even the best laid plans can go wrong.
It's like a high-stakes poker game. You're betting on players and draft picks and the whole landscape of the league.
And that's what makes it so exciting. We never really know how things are going to play out.
And it's not just about the teams, it's about the players too. Their careers, their lives are affected by these decisions.
It's easy to forget that these are real people, not just pieces on a chessboard. We're talking about families, dreams, aspirations.
And the fans, don't forget the fans. We get invested in these players, their stories. We feel the highs and lows right along with them.
Absolutely. Trades can break your heart, especially when a beloved player is traded away. But they can also bring new hope and excitement.
It's all part of the drama, right? The NBA is more than just a game. It's a human story.
Full of twists and turns, highs and lows, triumphs and tragedies. That's what makes it so compelling.
So where do we go from here?
We've just scratched the surface of NBA trade history. There are so many more stories to uncover, so many more lessons to learn.
I'm already thinking about our next deep dive. What other mysteries can we unravel?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. We could look at trades that built dynasties, trades that ruined franchises, trades that made legends, trades that left everyone baffled.
count me in. Let's keep exploring. It's amazing, right? All these trades, all this history. It really makes you think about the bigger picture.
Oh, absolutely. The ripple effects, the unintended consequences. It's like a butterfly effect, but with basketball.
And let's be honest, there's a part of us that just loves the drama of it all.
Of course. The what-ifs, the second-guessing, the armchair GMing, it's all part of the fun.
I mean, think about that OKC Harden trade. What if they had kept that core together? Durant, Westbrook, Harden, all in their prime.
It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it? Could it have been a dynasty? We'll never know.
That was going to be debated for years to come. But, for me, the Bill Russell trade keeps coming back to mind.
Yeah, that's a heavy one. It goes so much deeper than just basketball.
The racial dynamics, the decisions made, the legacies created. It's a story that needs to be told and understood.
It's a reminder that sports are never just about sports. They reflect our society, our values, our flaws, and understanding that context is crucial.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the biggest lesson we can take away?
That the NBA is constantly evolving. Trades are part of that evolution, for better or for worse. They create opportunities, they shatter dreams, they spark debate, and ultimately, they shape history.
Well said. And that's why we love it, right? The unpredictable nature, the human stories, the never-ending drama.
It's a microcosm of life itself.
All right, folks, that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through NBA trade history.
Keep those trade machines running, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the wild world of basketball.